Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Podcast. I'm Jason Abrams, and this is the place where we lift the curtain on the world of real estate like never before. Every week, I sit down with visionaries, pirates, and mavericks. We're here to document, demonstrate, and most importantly, demystify their game-changing models and systems. What secrets propel them to the top? And how are they living their dreams? This is about passion, it's about strategy, but above all, it's about real, tangible success. So buckle up and let's dive in. This is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Podcast. Friends, it never ceases to amaze me. There's always a new model out there. In this case, we are talking to a $150 million a year perennial earner. Cesi has made a living as a new construction salesperson. Over time, those neighborhoods turned into her farm areas, and today she dominates her marketplace. She is going to teach us exactly how to work with builders with a value proposition that they can't get enough of. Then, how to turn those neighborhoods into thriving farms. Friends, don't worry about taking notes. I'm taking all the notes. If you don't get them and they come out every Thursday, you can sign up at MREAnotes.com. In the meantime, sit back and buckle up. This is Cesi Pagano. Cesi, how are you?
Good, thanks. Good to see you, Jason. Thanks for having me.
So this is exciting for me. We're going to unpack all the success. I mean, y'all do 150 million plus year in and year out. You have a builder side to your business. You have a resale side to your business. You're living a huge life, and you're doing it in paradise. You're in Orange County, California, so things are good. But I want to go back before all of that. Can you walk us through? Tell me the story. How did you end up in the greatest industry in the world?
Well, actually, it was by accident. Like most, I didn't grow up saying I'm going to be a realtor, right? So I wanted to be an architect. That was actually my path. My parents were builders, international builders, architects, engineers. So that's the world I came from. So that was my path. But after doing my internship in architecture, I thought, no, not for me. So for me, I wanted to be more around people. Although I don't have a really high eye, I wanted that diversity of being able to do different things, right? So
sure.
I ended up trying to find myself. I went to a temp agency. They sent me to a savings and loan. And actually, that's what opened up my path, because they put me through a lot of training. They wanted me to get into management of the banking industry, in that savings and loan industry. They put me through training for loan officer, escrow officer. Then eventually I ended up in a joint venture partnership department. So I learned that world, and I was a project manager for them for many years. And then eventually a builder recruited me. And that was in the marketing department. I used to pull permits, those kind of things. But eventually, when I got pregnant with my second child and we moved away, like about an hour from our office, my boss said, "You're a great employee. We don't want to lose you. So being that you're commuting, we know you're going to want to quit. Eventually, you're going to get tired of that. So why don't we have you sell homes for us where you live?" And I was like, no way. I don't like salespeople. I'm not going to be that. There's just no way I'm going to do that. So they forced me. They said, "We're going to pay for your license, for your schooling. We need you to go." I did. And then they threw me into a sales community. And there's where, it all started. And I learned to not be a salesperson. I learned to understand what people's needs were, how to push the little buttons to get them to like our product that we had. And it was basically more about learning their needs to be able to match what we had. I did for about 15 years.
Gosh, that's a long run.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting because, David Huffaker, who's another one of our mega agents, if you haven't listened to his show with us, please go do so. He spent 9 years in new home sales, and you spent 15 years. What did you learn? What's the aha? What's the one thing that you pulled from that experience?
The main thing was learning how to capture people's attention for them to trust you and like you in the first 3 minutes you met them.
Well, now I want to know, how do you do that?
Well, what really happened was back in the day when I started in new home sales, there were over 20 to 25 builders around me that I was competing with. And I knew that if I didn't grab their attention and get them to like me or trust me, that I was going to lose them to another community because we all had similar product. So it was about not just being the typical, what are you looking to buy or anything like that. It was more about getting to know them. So it was about greeting them and trying to break the ice and be able to say, what brought you in today? Or, it's raining, coming inside. I love your shoes, and just anything to break the ice, right? So, and then we started talking about what they liked. There were many times where they would let us know that their criteria was not something that matched something that I had. So I would send them to a competition, but in a way that without knocking the competition, promoting our product for them to want to come back. So there were a lot of follow-up, a lot of conversations, try to get personal, and you try to qualify them to make sure they're really buyers, because sometimes we had 20 people that came in at the same time as well, right? So you had to try to pick and choose who you're going to talk to, who's got the body language that is wanting to accept you in the conversation.
So 15 years going to a sales model 5 or 6 days a week. I mean, that's a grind.
Oh, it was working weekends, missing out some of my kids' activities. Eventually, you get burned out, but you always had to be on your toes. The builders that we all worked for back in the day, at least the ones I worked for, they used to secret shop us. So they would have little cameras and video. And of course, it got played back by our manager. So I got to see my good and my bad sides and what I needed to improve. So that is basically what helped perfect our presentation, so, in so many words.
Well, so you have a ton of success, because if you weren't, you wouldn't have been there 15 years. What ends up happening in year 15 that makes you want to take the jump to resale?
Well, the industry started changing quite a bit. It was a tough industry because it was always like, if the home sold well, of course, we have the best product. If the homes didn't sell, what's wrong with the salesperson? So you had to be on your toes the entire time. So I love challenge. That's my personality. Give me a challenge and I'll try to fix it. Right now, too, I have challenging clients. I take those on all day long. I'd love to win the Ds and the type A personalities and turn them into friends. And that challenge it's what I thrive on. But after a while, of course, it gets grinding. And it got to a point that they started getting a little bit too micromanaging. The commute, they ended up sending me to a community that was a little further. And then here's what happened. One of the lenders who used to work with me in new home sales transitioned to resale. And he bought a KW franchise. And he bought one in Escondido, which is about an hour or so from where I am. And he's like, come join KW, this and that. I'm like, well, I've never heard of it. I'm scared. I've never done just resale on my own. He's like, you're going to love it. They brought me to Austin to a launch program, fell in love. They had very similar values, and that's where I all started. And then I joined, and actually originally wasn't sure I wanted to do sales. I was recruited more for a team leader. And then I learned what it was all about. I'm like, no, I want to be in sales.
So as we look at your business today, it's kind of broken into two distinct parts. You have the services that you provide to builders, and then you have the services that you provide to resale, both buy and sell. Let's start with the builders. And I know it's a relatively short conversation, but it's an important one, because you kept a foot in the new build community, even though you moved into resale. What did you do, and how did you do that?
When I got to resale, I said, okay, how am I going to do this? So naturally, I went and started farming a neighborhood, the last neighborhood I had sold. I had great relationships. And when I sold new homes, it wasn't just about being in a sales office. I created that community for them. Like, for instance, I got all the neighbors together. We would have parties at our sales offices. We would have, Christmas parties. We started a softball team. I played with them. We started bunco for the ladies, poker for the guys. We got that community. And to this day, they still are grateful that we got them together because they have long life relationships. Anyway, so I went back, started farming those neighborhoods. And naturally, I got my first listing and then my second, and I started expanding and expanding and expanding. While I did that, I kept my relationships with the builders. So I went back to the VPs that I knew, the VIPs, everybody in the new home industry. So I went to one of my last builders first, and I said, I would love to provide you a contingency program. I know you're in the industry better than anyone. Not only am I going to be here to be a contingency referring agent, I'm going to be a liaison for you, because to builders, it's so important to get 5-star reviews. And I said, I got always perfect 5-star reviews. So I know how to help your customers, because they're not clients for them, they're customers, make sure they understand your side of it so I can explain and smooth it over for you and be that liaison for you.
Okay, tell me how the contingency program works.
So if they have a buyer that's coming into their community and they have a house to sell, they would only consider that contingent buyer if they list it with me.
Why?
Because they knew my talent, they knew that I would get it sold. They knew that they would have control. They knew that it would be better for them to manage that process opposed to going through all these different realtors that had different processes. And it was not a guarantee. I provided a guarantee. And I said, if I don't sell it, I'll buy it. Of course, I was in a market where I could have said that because I knew I was going to sell it. I never had to buy one.
Okay, so the benefit to the builder is that they had some control and some visibility into the sales process that they're betting on by accepting a contingent offer. Was there a financial benefit between you and the builder?
No. But what I did is I also gave them the opportunity to understand that I wasn't just a local realtor, that because I was with KW, we were a worldwide connection. And although I would refer their contingent buyers that were from out of state or different areas to colleagues of mine from the same company, I assured them that I would be the only contact. It will still be done in the same process and systems, that I had in place, and I would control everything, and I would train every agent to think and walk like I did. And it worked.
So when I go into your MLS, which I do, everyone knows that I check all of their guests that we have on the show, and I look at their business. You have hundreds of listings every month in new construction communities that come on. How does that tie into this program?
Well, I offer for a lot of different builder services. So it's not like it's just a contingency program. I also let them know I can help them close out their communities because I know their system, I know their contracts and all. And although I'm not allowed to touch their contracts, I still get them to a point where I say, okay, here, write them up. I also offer postings, which is entry only. And yeah, it's not a full compensation, but it's good enough that provides us a good ROI because I don't spend any money in their business.
That's brilliant what she just said. There's this idea, and it's called flight to quality. And the idea is that when the markets change, consumers rush to whichever company they think has the highest quality. Real estate companies see this in a shifting market, then you'll see a ton of agents move over. Here's what I believe it means. It's actually a flight to whoever solves the biggest problem of the day for their constituents. That's who ends up being the winner. So if you want to dominate in any business, you need to figure out what the immediate problem is that those business owners have or that those clients have. Then solve it in a very specific way. And then you will see a ton of people move over to you and they'll call it a flight to quality. She figured it out. She went to all these builders and say, I guarantee your contingent offers, you will never have to worry about it again. Then she looked up and said, y'all have another problem. You want your listings on the MLS and you need someone to do it at a rate that works for your model. I'll take care of that. Here's what Cesi does. She wakes up every day and she asks a simple question. What's the biggest problems facing the building community? Then she builds a product that solves that problem. Then she just meets with builders and says, I'm the solution. It is absolutely brilliant. Let's talk about that for a second, because there's two schools of thought on this. Because I know other real estate agents, the Lokins come to mind in Houston, that have amazingly deep business relationships with builders where they put their inventory on the MS. And one group of agents says, well, wait a second, you're quote unquote giving it away, but there's a business model attached there.
Well, sure.
Walk me through the logic.
Okay. Well, for one, it keeps the relationship, right? And what I'm doing for them, I'm exposing their homes because it's not, although they have deeper pockets to be able to get people in through a KW system and all the internet sites that feed from the MLS and everything that feeds from our sites, we're at 76,000 websites worldwide. So I sell the fact that we can advertise that, right? I mean, that's part of KW, isn't it? I mean, that's basically what's in our
recruiting stuff. That's right.
So it increases their exposure. It brings realtors to their community. They like that I help them get that. They like that I don't charge them a full listing for it. But at the same time, I get leads from that too.
You must get tons of leads from hundreds of listings every month. Have you quantified that? Do you know how many leads come in on a monthly or annual basis?
I wish there were hundreds. I would say legitimately, it's probably about maybe 2 or 3 a month. And the reason it's so low is because I have to vet those particular leads when they come in. And one of the questions is, have you been to the community yet? Oh yeah, we've been there. We already signed in. Oh, okay. So they're not going to pay me if I bring the buyer. So it's important. I have to go through all that. But for all the leads that we get, it keeps our buyers agents busy. It keeps them engaged. It gives additional leads to them. Again, at the same time, the builders know that, if a realtor calls me, I try to warm that lead for them too and turn them over to them so they can have additional sales. It's kind of like a teamwork. Do I spend a lot of time on it? Maybe 5 minutes every 2 days. It's not a lot because a lot of it is I have a text that's, automated that I just reply and send them over. So that's kind of what it does for us. A lot of builders are building in areas like Irvine, which is like 15 minutes from our office. There's rental mission vehicle, a lot of new areas where there's high demand. So the prices continue to increase, of course.
If I'm an agent out there and I want to get into this and I want to provide builder services, it sounds like step one, I need to learn the new build business and be able to speak that language.
Right.
Step two, if I'm going to be on the resale side, I have to offer a suite of services to builders that help them. That might be the contingency. It might be a limited listing by putting it into the MLS for them. It might be by screening the buyers they have coming in. Is that right?
That's right.
And then it sounds like step three is once I have my buckets of value and programs that I can provide, I have to go meet with builders and explain to them why I'm valuable.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the final step of the process, which is I either helped sell part of it or I helped them close it out. Now I'm going to start farming it. So when people move, I'm the resale agent. What does farming a neighborhood look like?
Well, again, I always lead with revenue. We learned that from Gary. So it's always personal contact first, door knock it. I've never been a good door knocker. I have my team do it. But, I do call. And because they know me, I already have a foot in the door. And I'm like, I'm in the area. I'd love to have coffee with you. How's it going? How's the family? I get personal. So that's kind of our follow-up. And I stay consistent. And I always let them know, look, even though you bought a new home, you have a warranty program. If you get stuck with something, call me. I'll try to walk you through it and kind of help you get that resolved. After the year warranty is up, I say, call me. I'm here as your resource. If you need a handyman, you need a painter. I always want to be the go-to person. Or you just moved to the neighborhood. What do you need? Do you need a doctor? Here's, who a lot of your neighbors go to. Here's a gardener who your neighbors use. That's who I become for them. And I do get a lot of calls, hey, Cesi, I need an electrician. Great, here you go. But I want to be that top of mind person.
Is there a mailing or a postcard component? What are you sending?
All kinds of things. So for one, we created a newsletter. It's not fancy, but it keeps them engaged in their neighborhood. So our newsletter contains here's where the market is, here's what's happening in the economy, in the world, here's what's happening in your immediate neighborhood. We provide recipes. There's a little section where I say, here's an ad that you can place free to you. Let me know what you want me to promote for you. Are you selling something in your home or you have a business you want your neighbors to know about? So I try to engage them that way. And of course, they want to make sure that bottom line, that you're successful in their neighborhood. So of course, just listed just old cards. Here's what we've done. We send one at the end of the year. Here's everything we've done. We're not just in your neighborhood because I want to make sure they know that if they move to across town, I can help them there too, right?
I really like that. That's an interesting touch. A lot of folks do just listed, just sold. We hear that all the time. But you do a cumulative one at the end of the year to remind them that the body of work is larger than most of the other real estate agents.
Correct. And the message is, I've been in the business long enough to been able to help our clients grow and move into different areas. And even if you think you're moving across the country, it happens in California, right? A lot of people leave and come in. So I can connect you with whoever you need. And I touch with my out-of-state clients too and say, how's it going? You're in Indiana now, you're in Texas, wherever you are. I can connect you with whoever you need. Yeah, we're looking for a handyman. Let me call the realtor that I know and we can get you connected with. So, because sometimes they come back.
This makes perfect sense to me. Okay, so I think I understand the new build side of the business. The secondary component here is the repeat and referral business that you get out of your network. You say it so casually, I stay in touch. But Jesse, you have thousands of people in your database.
Right.
I know you're not just waking up and entrepreneurially figuring out who to call. What's the model? What's the system that you're using to actually do this?
Well, in my CRM, I set tasks and I log in all the conversations. So I know where I left off. Oh, my son is getting married next month. Great. I call him at the end of the month. How was the wedding? I'd love to see pictures. Send me something. Or sometimes it's a quick text. I was thinking about you today. I'd love to see pictures of the wedding or anything that I can do. Yeah, it's grinding. I go through burnout sometimes, 3-4 hours a day trying to stay in touch with everyone. And there's going to be times where there's certain people that are just hard to reach. And no matter what, I can't reach. I'll still leave a message.
You just said something. You just said 3 to 4 hours a day. This is a place where we only are honest with each other. You're actually doing this 3 or 4 hours a day?
I do.
Walk me through your daily schedule. How does it work?
Well, I need to get my workout, all the stuff out of the way so I can stay sane. And yeah, they always say, don't check your email, but I do. I'm very OCD. I got to clean my desk first to make sure I can focus. So it's not at 9 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it's at 10 when I call. But a lot of it, I schedule 2 in the afternoon if I know I'm going to try to reach them in the afternoon. I would say 80% of the calls that I make end up with voicemail, which is fine. I leave a voicemail. I was thinking about you. How's it going? I'm here. Don't forget about me. You need a resource. You need a handy guy. No, last time you were looking for a plumber. Don't forget, I'm here. I try to recap our conversations so they know that I care. And here's the funny thing. Sometimes I don't hear from anyone. They don't call me for years. And I'm like, should I give up on these people? And now I'm going to keep grinding. And eventually, 6 years later, I had somebody that called and said, you've been in touch. I'm sorry we haven't called. We've just been busy, but we're ready to sell. On Fridays, I try to do 1.5 to 2 days to give myself a break. Saturdays and Sundays, It's just about me receiving calls and, smoothing over anything we got going on in escrow, whatever.
Okay, so the personal touch. So step 1 is get them into the database. Step 2 is you get really personal and you stay in touch with a value add of I can solve any problem in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
It's overly simplistic, right? Because it's just 2 steps. Number 1, build a database. Number 2, contact that database on a regular basis. And it would be easy for you to stop there and simply dismiss it. Oh, there's not much happening there. Friends, that's all of it. Those of us that are running database-driven businesses, remember, your network is your net worth. Your database is your business. And it goes a step further. The conversation is the relationship is what Cesi figured out. And so she spends 3 to 4 hours a day in deep conversation with her people. That creates a thriving relationship. And sure, she does the newsletters and the pie giveaways and the other touches. All of those other touches in her world are irrelevant if she's not on the phone in a TCPA friendly and compliant way, having meaningful conversations with her people. I'll prove it to you. Think of it like this. If you go on a date with someone that you really like and you go to a movie and the movie is terrible, does that mean you had a terrible date? Absolutely not. Because the conversation is the relationship. It's did you hold hands? Did you share dinner? Did you make connection? Did you make eye contact? Did you connect with the person? You can have a terrible movie and a great date as long as the conversation is good. That's why the date isn't the movie. The date is the discussion. Friends, she has it figured out. Deep relationships only work when you have deep conversations, and that only works when you put in the time to have them. Step 3, what are the other touches you're making?
Well, they're also getting, even though they might have moved into areas that are not our farms, they still get our success stories. We still send postcards to our past clients, which are, I'm here for you. It's your resource. I remind them about that same thing. If you're thinking about moving somewhere else or the state, whatever, I can connect you with anyone. We have cute little postcards and things that with images that show, like, let's say the map of the United States with the little arrows going different directions. I can be your connection to that. Just little reminders. I mean, do I get 100% return? No, of course not. But you know how it is, right?
Do you do client events as well?
Yes, because we appreciate you. We're going to do the Thanksgiving pie event. Everybody does those now, of course. Sometimes we'll do, it depends, we rotate it depending on how the holidays fall. If it's too short towards the Christmas holiday, sometimes we skip that, but sometimes we'll do Santa photos. But most importantly, we do a client appreciation party once a year. I know COVID kind of threw me off a little bit, and sometimes we've skipped every other year, but we still connect with them on that. We do a fall festival in one of our farms where we invite everyone and we make it a family event. We're not selling anything. We're just there to let them know, we care about you and want you to have fun. We have three-legged races, all kinds of things for the kids. We also do a spring festival for them.
What's the key to those events? So I'm assuming it's the invitation, and then do you post it on social media after? How do you drive to it?
Because we have pretty much captured a lot of the emails and phone numbers. I do leave messages for everyone. We do that to remind everybody of the event. They get flyers, of course, in the mailer. I have our team door knock to remind them of the fall festival as well and spring festival. We don't do social media because we want to keep it to that specific neighborhood of people that are part of that area. We send emails, of course, and we ask them to RSVP.
I love that. That's smart. Let me ask you this. I understand that you are an incredibly fierce and powerful person, and that you can wake up and have the drive to make contacts for 3 to 4 hours a day in a TCPA friendly and compliant way, of course. But the people that come work on your team, I have to think that's difficult, because I ask mega agents all the time, what's your biggest challenge? And they say, getting the people on the team to do the thing I'm asking them to do. So how do you deal with that, Cesi? And are you tracking that for your team members?
We do. So I hired a director of sales to help me get them all into production. And of course, I'm still their go-to, and I don't mind being there. I love to coach and I love to help them with that. It's just basically grinding it to their core, right? When you hire people, it's important you ask them what their goal is and why they're coming in. And we go through the whole recruiting process and all that. And of course, there's still a hit or miss. They'll say they want to be me. And then they'll learn what me is. And they're like, no, I don't want to be you. Right? But what I do offer to my team that hopefully inspires them is, look, there's no borders and there's no limits at my team. You want to be me, I'll teach you to be me. We learned that from Gary, right? Gary says, you want to be me, here you go, this is what I've done. Yeah, of course, I'm never inspired to be as big as him, but what happens is I let them know that they can build a team within the team. I try to get them where they want to be. Sometimes they get comfortable where they are. Sometimes circumstances come up where, babies come or they get married and they don't need the extra income anymore. But the reason I keep our team, whether they do high production or not, is because of the 5-star service. And as long as I can provide for our clients and help us keep our clients, that's important to me. So I keep hiring more and more agents to help offset that volume.
Why does that matter so much? This is the third time since we started visiting that you talked about how important providing great service is. But I'm going to take the other side of it for a second. There's so many people, Cesi, you can provide terrible service, and as long as you lead generate, you'll have someone new tomorrow. Why does customer service matter so much to you?
It's easier to stay in a relationship and have that repeat business and start over, right? I get to know these people and I care about them and I want them to know I'm there. That's why I do it. That's my non-sales person that is still inside me, right? That wants to be there for people.
Earlier in the call, you said builders call them customers, not clients. And I thought that was a really important thing that you said. You've been on both sides. What's the difference between a customer and a client?
Well, a client is somebody you have a fiduciary duty to, right? Somebody that you help, you guide, and you take them through that final step. A customer is different. A customer is somebody that is the builder perspective. They come into your sales office. They're representing the builder, not the buyer. They're just taking them to their process. That's it.
You've been a successful real estate entrepreneur for many, many years. By all accounts, you've made an awful lot of money. Yet you still wake up 4 or 5 days a week with a drive to be making contacts for 4 hours a day. Cesi, what's driving you today? I understand what drove you then. Why are you still doing this?
Well, to be perfectly honest, as far as why I work, it's not because of the money, because I could retire today. I'm set. Everything's no debt. Houses are paid. Everything's done, right? I care about people. People say to me all the time, are you going to retire someday? Well, yeah, I would love to pass that legacy on to someone else, give that baton to someone else to take over. And my goal is to train somebody to eventually do that. Will I ever leave the business? No, I think I'm always going to be on it. I don't mind staying in touch with my people, clients, I mean. I don't mind coaching my team, but until that person shows up, which is hard to find, as you know.
Yes.
I'm going to continue to do what I do. But the most important factor is I'm extremely competitive. just when I think, okay, well, I don't need that listing. It's going to be, one of those you just don't want to touch. Oh, wait, they're interviewing my competition? No, I'm going to have that listing. So that's who I am.
During all of this success, did you have time for family and for deep relationships?
Well, it did cause a divorce. I don't think it was actually a major cause of divorce. It was hard in the beginning. It was hard to balance because it was just me until I built the team. Through time, little by little, I started balancing a little bit more. I'm remarried and things are great. Do we have the time that we need? No, but it's a lot more than it used to be. We get to have dinner together. We get to walk the dog together. Where before I couldn't do any of that. We do get away. Where before on weekends, I was grinding and working. Now I'm just having my team manage that. So little by little, I'm getting more and more free time. And I wish it was a lot more than that. But, because I'm very hands-on and very OCD, I want to be there for our clients. And I think someday I'll hope to let that go. I think once I have the right person to handle that part of it, not that I don't, our agents are great, but they're not me yet. I did grow up wealthy. My family had a lot of money. But then after my parents divorced, my dad went one direction and with everything, I left my mom and I and my brother without anything. So when you go from that to nothing, I think you learn a valuable lesson as to what it takes. I mean, there are some people that turn the other way, right? They get into the wrong things. But to me, it was, okay, I don't want to go through what my mom went through. She went through a lot of pain. This is a lady that didn't go to college, got married at a very young age, was dependent on her husband, right? And I was like, okay, that's not going to be me. I don't want to go down that path. So I made sure that I was self-contained.
That's so wild. So to start with it, then lose it, and then build it again.
And I lost it again because I went through a major divorce. I wouldn't say it was a bad divorce. It's just that it was amicable, but my income was substantially higher. So I had to give up everything and start over again. So I had to start for the second time in much later years.
Looking back, if you could tell the younger you, give some piece of advice to the younger you about life or business, what would you tell yourself?
Family first. Don't miss your kids' activities because I missed out on quite a few. Not all of them. I did make it to a lot. By the time my daughter got to an age of sports, she was in cheer. I was in resale, so I was able to get to most of her competitions and stuff, which was great. So I had a little more balance. It's making sure that you keep that family first. Because of my competitive nature, I was so involved in my business that I had to get it perfected to grow organically that I lost some family time. And that's something that I don't advise anyone to do.
Is there a human that you've watched or that you knew that you would say is your hero or someone that you emulate or someone that you hold in amazingly high esteem?
Besides Gary?
Well, it doesn't have to be besides Gary. It could be Gary.
When I first joined KW, it was Linda McKissick. I always said, I want to grow up to be her. Her name still stands, but she's not touching the business anymore.
Yeah.
And someday I'll get there.
We talk to so many people. There's so few people that have given as much as you have to an industry over as long as you've been giving. In 38 years, in an industry that most people, the average, 72% are out after 2. Mm-hmm. I just want you to know you are incredibly powerful and dynamic.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
I'm grateful for you and everything that you've taught all your agents.
And thanks for having me.
Cesi, thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it.
It's about to be the fastest closing to an episode ever because she simplified it to the key pieces. If you want to work with builders, hell, if you want to work with any group, figure out their problem and specifically solve it, and then market that solution. That's how she built those businesses. And then as soon as you want to run a database-driven business with all the people in it, spend 3 to 4 hours a day talking to them. Here's the deal. Real estate is a contact sport. And that means that we got to wake up every day and worry about making contacts with the people that are in our database. That's literally the key. And sure, we're going to do it in a TCPA friendly and compliant way, and we're going to follow all the rules. But in the end of it, you'll be able to track your success by the number of conversations you have with people. And because people do business with people they like, the number of conversations we have to them becomes the scoreboard, because it's almost impossible to be likable if you're not having conversations. And if you're not having conversations, you cannot say that you are in relationship. All she does is wake up focused every day on 3 to 4 hours of meaningful conversations. And that's enough to drive a multi-million-dollar business. Go forth and do likewise. There it is. That wraps another episode. Friends, I don't know what you're taking out of this. I really don't. I'll tell you what I want you to be taking out of it, which is these are the people that are having tremendously big lives. And the reason it's happening is because they're setting up the models and systems to do just that. Gary Keller told me that leadership is teaching people how to think so that they do the things they need to do when they need to do them, so that ultimately they get the things they want when they want to have them. And that's what I want for you. You're all leaders, but it begins with leading ourselves. If you're enjoying this podcast, I want you to click the subscribe button anywhere that you get your podcasts. We want to be the voice in your head every single week, and every week we're dropping new content. We also send out a newsletter at the conclusion of every show to make sure that you get the highest points in the models and systems that were discussed. So if you want to sign up, I need your name and your email address. Head over to the millionaireagentpodcast.com. millionaireagentpodcast.com. Enter your name and your email address, and every week that newsletter will be in your box. Friends, you just went on a journey. I hope that what happens between now and the next time we meet is absolutely wonderful for you. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information. Warning: you must comply with the TCPA and any other federal, state, or local laws, including for B2B calls and texts. Never call or text a number on any do not call list, and do not use an autodialer or artificial voice or pre-recorded messages without proper consent. Contact your attorney to ensure your compliance.